Yes, I have started the recording. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello guys, welcome to Virtual Gupshup 10. It's all about deployments. So let me start with my introduction. My name is S.V. Swami. I am two-time Salesforce certified. I am a certified administrator and an app builder. And I am Capado certified administrator. I am working in NIT Technologies as a senior software engineer. I have over 4.5 years of experience, IT experience, and currently I am working as a Salesforce developer in NIT. You can reach out to me on my Twitter handle at SparkSwami and mail me at sparkswami7@gmail.com. So now the agenda. Today's agenda is what is the deployment process in Salesforce. We will learn about this deployment process and what is the deployment connection, why deployment is such an important topic for everyone, what are the different ways of deployment, and then we will explore a few types of deployment. So what actually is a deployment process? See, in Salesforce, we work with different organizations like developer org, sandbox, right? And sandbox 1, sandbox 2, even QA org, UAT. So what we are doing, we are creating some customizations because we all know that Salesforce is giving us a bunch of custom objects and other functionalities that we can use for our business. So we have to customize according to our business. So sending that customization from one org to another org is nothing but the deployment process. So for deploying anything, we need a connection. That connection is called deployment connection. This connection automatically creates between the organizations. If you are working in a sandbox and a production, so whenever a new sandbox is created out of a production box, so at that time this connection gets created automatically. So we all know that there are different types of connection, sandboxes. So I already explained this point. Then comes deployment is. So and this is the important point I forgot here. So an org must be authorized to send and receive the change sets. When someone creates an administrator creates a sandbox, he has the authority to close that connection so that nobody can send any customization through change sets. So this is mainly important for change set only. Otherwise, if we go for any other type of deployment, we can go with it. And if you want to know with which all the orgs you are connected with, you can go and check through the setup menu in your org and just type deployment connection. The list will pop up. So why is deployment is much important? It's that much of important. Why everybody is talking about deployment and why one should know about the deployment? Because I already told you, in Salesforce we work in groups. Suppose I'm in a dev team 1 and someone else in a dev team 2. So we both are working in two different environments. So we have to deploy our code from one environment to another environment so that the quality people go and check that thing. And after that, we have to give that uh, customization to customer so that the customer can test it thoroughly, and after that we have to put it in the production, because going directly and coding to the production is not a good idea, right? So for sending customization we must know how to do deployments. Since I already the role what we are performing here is not just developer, we have to do the admin role as well. So deployment is very important for us to understand. I already explained this thing as well. Sandbox 1, Sandbox 2.
I just consider that there would be new people as well, so maybe you might have to cover everything from the scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, so what are the different ways of deployment? There are many different ways. First, this change set, the workbench, and deployment, Copado. And yes, Eclipse is also there. That is with force.com IDE. So apart from Eclipse, I have worked with all the four points. So I'll explain it later. So first we go to the chain set. What is a chain set? Chain set, this can only be found in your sandbox. See, if you are, suppose if you are going to go and find this chain set in a developer org right now that you are using for your own purpose. So you won't be able to find that because it is something which comes only with the sandboxes. So unless you are working in any company, so you can use the sandbox, go to the setup, just type chain set, then you will get to know, you will get these two types of chain set. One is inbound chain set and the other one is outbound chain set. So what is inbound chain set and what is outbound chain set? Suppose I'm in dev org 1 and I have to send my customization to UAT. So what I have to do, I have to create a outbound chain set from dev org 1, and then that outbound chain set will be connected to the, will be sent through the connection to the QA sandbox. So if you have to deploy from one org to another, you will create what? Outbound chain set. And if you want to get a chain set from another org, that means in dev box, I will create outbound chain set. In QA box, I will create inbound chain set. Okay, so this is the concept about the inbound and outbound chain set. And the theory is same. You have to go to the setup, just type chain set, and there you can create chain set. So with chain set, first you have to create the name of chain set. Sorry guys, I cannot show you the application demo for this because my project is a government project and they are very vigilant since after this lockdown, hacking is everywhere. So I can't show you that. So I'll just give you the high level concept and give you all the theory. And if you have any questions, I can happily answer that as well. So what are the all things that we can send through chain sets? These are custom objects. If you create a custom object, what you have to do, you have to create a chain set, give a name to that chain set. Generally what we follow, we give some generic name. Suppose I am giving sprint 1. So I'll say sprint 1, or you want to give it any other name, you can do, but just follow the rules. Sprint 1 will be okay. So I will give the name sprint 1, then I'll choose the custom object, and then I'll add all the custom objects and then custom labels as well, list views, Apex triggers, approval processes, auto response rules, queues, page layout, button and links, validation rules, apps, custom applications that we build, Visual Force pages, Visual Force components, Apex classes, folders, approval process, repos, triggers, all we can send through chain sets. But there are certain limitations as well. Since what are different? First, the thing is manual tasks. We have to do a lot of manual tasks. Like if you want to deploy 10 classes, first you have to select class 1, then add it, class 2, then add it. Suppose there are hundreds of classes. If you have only 5 or 10 components, it's fine. But it's more than 5 and 10 components in real world scenario. So it's a very hectic process. And in a page, if any component is there, first you have to select in that page, add that, then again go to the same process, then perform this repetitive task again. So the manual hectic is very high in this. And moreover, FLS, field level security, all these have to be done manually. Adding pick list value is also a manual task. But here is a catch. If you are deploying a new pick list field, suppose you have created a new pick list field, you can easily deploy it. But if you are adding a few new values to the existing pick list, then you should think about chain set. You should not use chain set while adding values to the existing pick list field. Why this is so? Because if you will do so, you will easily able to transfer from dev org to QA org to any other org. But what will happen? The values which are active already in the production org, say, they will, and these values are not there in your deployment or dev org. So those value will be deactivated automatically. Only the new values which you have sent through this new pick list uh, through this chain set will be activated. So what will happen? It will create a great havoc for you. It will disable all the existing pick list value and only the new pick list value will be available for that particular field, and which is not the scenario, and you don't want to get into that. Uh, and mapping the dependent pick list field value is also a manual task. Suppose there are two, I guess, dependent pick list value everybody knows. Suppose I have chosen a pick list country, and the dependent pick list value for India is Delhi, New Delhi, Hyderabad, and all these things. So dependent pick list value also have to add manually. I cannot do it through the chain set. And then deletion of object, whether it's about deleting an object or deleting a field or deleting a class, you cannot do anything. That means deletion is totally restricted in chain sets. If you have to delete something, you have to do it manually. You cannot do it by chain set. And providing VF page access, Visualforce pages. Since once we create Visualforce pages for different business needs, we have to provide access to various profiles so that the people and the users assigned to that profile can access those pages. That should be done through a manual task only. You cannot do that through chain set. And adding translations as well. Suppose that your production is using different languages. One is English and other one is native to that state. So if you will send any label, custom label, it will easily go to your production. But the translation for that custom label have to be done manually. There is a section under label that is called translations. There you have to create a new value and add it manually. And this manual task has to be done in each and every intermediate environment. Suppose I have done my development in production, DevBox 1, and then I'll give it to my team, my QA team in QA environment. So I have to perform this manual task for QA environment. And after that, QA2, I will deploy the same customizations in UAT environment, that is called user acceptance test environment, where the user will test what are the functionalities that we are going to offer. So again, I have to perform all these manual tasks. And then from UAT to production again. That means for going and for deploying the same set of customization, I have to do manual tasks thrice. One from DevBox 1 to QA, and then the other from QA to UAT, and then UAT to production. So this is a very cumbersome task. Guys, just think about this. If we are deploying only 10, 20 fields or 20 customizations, it's okay. But in real world scenario, hundreds of customizations. You have to maintain an Excel sheet for this, where you have to mention all the manual tasks. And trust me, every time this happens, 1 or 2 points you always gonna miss, and that is gonna catch in either QA deployment or in UAT. Thank God we have this much of deployment every time, this much of QA environment and UAT environment, so we can cover all these manual tasks. And process builder activation is also a manual task. You can easily deploy the process builder through chain set, but you have to do the activation manually. And I remember last time what happened in my project. The guy forgot to activate the process builder, and after 2 months, a ticket has been raised for the same thing, that a process builder is not working. And entitlement processes also has to be done manually. And yes, apart from this, there are many other limitations. First, we have to select the component one by one. If a test class fails while deploying, we have to rerun all the test classes. It is mandate for Salesforce that we have to run the test classes before deployment to the production. Why it is mandate? Because we are Salesforce is a multi-tenant architecture. Since we are sharing the same resources with many other people, so Salesforce take care of this thing that we cannot consume we cannot consume the whole, what did you call, we cannot consume the whole thing that they are providing. So it is a check. So we have to pass our test classes. If suppose there are hundreds of classes, and if even a single class fails, you have to run all the test classes again. There is no scenario in ChainSet that you can run only that one single class which is failed. And then this is all about deployment through ChainSet. So the next part is deployment through Workbench. For Workbench, Workbench is also from Salesforce. ChainSet is the out-of-box functionality of the Salesforce, and Workbench is similar to ChainSet. It is also a tool provided by the Salesforce as well. For this type of deployment, you have to go to this site, workbench.developerforce.com. If you will go there, and you have to log in with your credentials, either sandbox credential or production credentials. For retrieving, you have to go with your sandbox credentials. Then there are two options. First is retrieve and deploy. This option comes under the retrieve option. To perform the retrieve operations what is retrieve operation? Is just like the outbound chain set, right? For retrieve option, this is just like the outbound chain set, and you have to create an outbound chain set in your org. First, you have to create the outbound chain set. You have to select manually all the customization that you are sending, the different various components. Then you will prepare that XML file with standards and types defined with the version and the API. That will be done automatically when you click on retrieve button. Then for that, you have to go to the migration tab, select the retrieve option. So the first point here says, prepare an XML file with the standards and types defined with the version of the API for the request. This will be done automatically through the chain set that has been created in your org. If you don't want to do that, you can create an package.xml by yourself. If you go to the developerforce.com, there you can find the salesforce.developerforce.com. There you can find the examples of package.xml and you can create your own. But later in slides, I will also show you how to create a package.xml as well. And in the unmanaged manifest section, what you have to do, you have to click on the browse button and then select the XML package that you have created in step 1, right? If you have created in step 1, otherwise what you have to do, you have to do nothing. Just click on next button and click retrieve button. Then click on the download zip. So what you have to do, you have to just click on the download zip file. At this point, the zip file will be downloaded and you have to upload that zip file to your production org. And that comes under the deployment process. For deployment as well, here the first step shows the create a folder package XML in the root and sub-label folder with the component names. You have to do nothing. Here, the file that we have retrieved in step 1, right? When we were logging to the workbench through our sandbox credentials, that zip file only we have to upload here. But before uploading, you have to log into with your production credentials and just go to the migration tab and select the zip folder that you have downloaded in step 1 and just select deploy and choose the file, and you have to select a few options there. There comes a few buttons like retrieve only, deploy only, and rollback on error is one of them. If some says if like a class fails, you can roll back it, and after that you have to just click on deploy button, and the deployment process is done. And you can check the deployment status in your org. For that, you have to go to the setup and just type deployment status, and it will show in your org. And now comes the AND. So AND is nothing but Java based tool. So before installing AND, there are a few requisites. First of all, you have to have a JDK 1.5 or above. But what Salesforce says that you should have at least Java 1.7 version or above. Why it is suggesting us to keep 1.7? So that because Java 1.7 and the higher version is better for your security and TLS support. What is security and TLS support? TLS is nothing but a transport layer security protocol, which provide privacy and data integration when we connect with two different organizations. So it's better, you can go with Java 1.8. That's the most stable version after 1.5. So after that, downloading and setting, you have to set the class path of JDK, and then you can download it through. You have to download the AND distribution. For AND distribution, you have to go to this and.apache.org, and from this link, you can download the binary, and you have to save that binary in your C folder. C drive. And after saving there, you have to set the environment variable. Okay, I can show this you how we can do this. I have already downloaded. See, I have already downloaded this file for ease, and I have saved this is here in C folder with the name Apache Ant 1.8. And if I click on this, it will directly land me into the Apache's official site. From here, you can download this latest version. Okay. And after downloading it, save it in your C drive. And after this, you can give this path. You have to set the environment variables as well. It's taking some time maybe. See here, in the system properties, you have to go to the advanced tab and click on the environment variables. Here you can see two different things: user variables for Swami and system variables. As this is my personal laptop, I have the admin rights, so I can change the system variables. Sometimes when we work in our office laptop, we don't have admin access. So what we have to do, we have to create the user variables only. So I'll here create the system variable. First of all, ant home. For this, you have to create a new ant home, and you have to give the path of where you have saved the ant, and it should be the parent folder of bin, this bin. So I'll go back So this is the part that I need to give. Okay. Okay. And after that, you have to set the path as well. For path, just click on path, and in the end, you can add the path of till bin. In ant home, you have to give the path before bin, the parent folder of the bin, and in path you have to give the entire path till bin. Okay. And after that, you have to check whether the ant is installed or not. Just go to the command prompt and write ant. First, I have to check, do I have a Java space hyphen version version, so that I can know I am using Java 1.8.0.161. And now I can check whether I have ant installed properly or not. Yes, it is installed properly. Compile on May 10. Sometimes when you are unable to install properly, you will get this most basic error that is called unable to find tool.jar. You have to do nothing. Just go to your JDK home and copy this tool.jar and paste it in the JRLF folder. So since we are dealing all these things with what? Salesforce. So we should have one more jar file that is called ant Salesforce jar. And from where I will get this file? Just go to your org. And go to the setup. There you have to type developer tools. Or might be just tools. Yes, it's just tools. And here there are three options. First is Lightning Platform Tools and Toolkits, App Actions Integration Tools, App Actions Admin and Developers Tools. Here we want Lightning Platform Tools and Toolkits. So I'll click here and it will redirect you to the another page, tools page, developer.salesforce.com/tools. Here are the different development tools which are provided by Salesforce. Scratch.org, CLI, Developer Console, and here is the one that we need, that is Ant Migration Tool. If we click here, it will ask us to download, right? Let me write. So whatever is the latest tool available in the market will be available here. So you can read the name here, download the .zip file of the Spring 20 Ant migration tool. That means this is the latest one. Just click here, you will download the file. Since the internet connection at my end is slow, I've already downloaded it. This is a zip file that I have downloaded. Salesforce and 48.0 zip, that is version 48, right? After unzipping this file, you will get these three files. This is ant.jar. This you have to copy and paste it in the lib folder of your ant, so that all the basic instructions that we are going to define after a few slides will be understood by my Salesforce org, right? For that purpose, I need this jar file and I have to copy this here in the ant lib file. Control C. Already, I have already pasted this. Replace in the destination. It will just replace and.salesforce.jar. So now my org will be able to do, will be able to follow all the instructions that we are gonna give in future. Just two slides that future. And before going to that slide, I'll also show you here. This is one readme.html file. Here it will give you all the instructions, how to install, how to use this migration tool, and what are the things that you can do using the deploy and retrieve. All these things you can go by yourself. Apart from that, there is sample folder. In this sample folder, there are code package file, my package file, remove code package, and unpackaged. These are the folders which are already there, and some of them might be having some classes and triggers, but that is not of our importance at this point of time. The two files that we are highly in are build.properties and build.xml, right? So let me go back to the slides, then we will come back to these two files. Okay. So this was all about ant-salesforce.jar. So what is the general procedure that we have to follow while using this ant migration tool? We have to enter our credentials and the connection information for the Salesforce organization in build.properties. Just now I told you there are two different files. One is build.properties and other one dot is build.xml. Can you give me a second, please? Partner. So what I was talking about build.xml. So ANT is totally based on XML syntaxes. We have to use only XML and we have to give the instructions in the XML file. The first file which comes in picture is build.xml. Okay, there are different build. And before that, there is another file, build.properties. So this is build.properties and I have already. So there are two different files. One is build.xml, the other one is build.properties. In build.properties, this property files, what it does, it saves our credentials. Excuse me. the username and the password and my old build.properties file. Suppose here I have already saved this file. This is my username. See, sf.username, this property will save your username, the login credential with which you log in into your developer or your sandbox. In this case, my credential is svs.java.dev@gmail.com. And with sf.password property, I have to specify my password. Here the password is test@123. Okay, test@123 is the password for my org. And what is this rest of the thing? This is called the security token that you have to put while you are going to connect with different organizations. This can be excluded if you are using a certain IP ranges, but that is not a practical case because nobody is gonna use that thing. It's using that thing, but just for practice, you can use the IP addresses as well. IP range. In that case, if you provide the IP range, you don't have to use the security token. Otherwise, you must have to use this security token. And where you will find the security token, I'll also show you. And from setup, okay, I'll go to click on the name, your icon. Here in the settings section, my personal information, reset my security token. What happens whenever a new sandbox is created, someone authorizes you in that sandbox, it creates a user account for you. At that time, the security token is generated and it will be emailed to you. And if you want to reset that token, you can reset it by coming here, reset my token, click on reset, and you will get an email. It will not shown here. It will be sent via email. So here is my Gmail account ID. So I will get the in my Gmail account. Right. Control T. If I'll go to the Gmail. So your new Salesforce security token. Since I have reset my security token right now, I cannot work with the old security token. So this is one of the best features that Salesforce is providing, that you can every time before deployment, you can change a security token so that it is highly secure. And every time you have to put a new security token, if someone has seen your security token, he cannot use it in the future if you will reset it, right? Unless I won't reset it, I can use the same security token each and every time. So this was about build.properties file, and then comes into picture build.xml. What is build.xml? Build.xml is nothing. It is again a XML file which gives instructions to your Salesforce org to how to use the different instructions to perform the deployment process. See, I already told you this is very easy, and you can easily create these files by your own. But Salesforce has given this sample, so why to perform extra tasks? So you can just download it and perform this thing. Here in this file as well, there are very different things which are specified here. First, this property file build.properties and your environment. And I guess I missed one thing here. Sorry, guys. The sf.url, this properties also has to be defined here. This URL, it will contain the URL from which you want to deploy and to which you want to deploy. Suppose right now, if I'll have to perform the retrieve option, I will take the sandbox, right? Like sf.server URL is equal to, here it is. I'll just copy paste it. And when you are working with one thing, you have to comment the other thing. For commenting this properties file, you have to use the hash symbol that I'm using right here, right? Hash. If I use the hash, it will disable that particular line. So when you are retrieving, you have to retrieve it from your developer sandbox, that is test.salesforce.com. And when you are going to deploy it, you have to comment this using hash and uncomment the line that is for login.salesforce.com. And the max poll is 20 here. You can give anything, but minimum 20 is required so that you will be able to deploy it easily, right? So this is the file. Okay, this is a different file. So I told you, you have to take care of this URL as well. For retrieving, you must have to use your test URL, that is of sandbox test.salesforce.com, and for production login.salesforce.com. What happens, people accidentally forget this thing. So these are very minute mistakes that we perform. So keep in mind that you should not perform such types of mistake. Okay. And build.xml, yes. Here is build.xml. It will say the first these two things. It will load this properties file right now. Right now I haven't write anything, this properties file, okay? So it will, what it will do, it will upload this file. It will use your username and the password to your org along with your security token. So this entire thing, test@123 with the security token, will be the complete password and will create a connection with these two lines, okay? With these two lines, build.properties. It will upload with these two lines and it will check the user name and the password, and in case you want to give the session ID, then this will come handy. Otherwise it will do nothing, it will sit idle, okay? You can relate here, sf.username, sf.password, same thing here, sf.username, sf.password, value it will fetch after deploying from these two lines, okay? These are the class paths variable which is provided so that it will it has access to the jar file that we have uploaded. And then comes the different things here. I will go with this retrieve unpackage. What it will do, it will first, there are two ways for creating your package.xml, right? This is called package.xml. The first and the most easy way, you can go ahead, create it by your own. Just copy a sample file from internet and give the different type that you want to add. Like here, I am creating. So custom application, add the name and the members with all the custom applications that have been created in my org. The star says all. Suppose I don't want to give all. I have created one, what I have created for HR, right? Created HR billing, right? It will, what it will do, it will just calculate all the salaries, right? So one app for HR billing, another app, just you have to add the members. Other app, say I have created for Arogya Setu app, so that I can keep a track on all the employees. So you have to give the members name individually here, And custom objects, for this is the name custom object, and this is the actual name of the custom object, candidate. I have created one candidate object and I'll send that object. And if I have to send any field related to that object, I will create just members like this. Okay. And if I have to give more members, candidate dot age, and again candidate dot expected salary, and another candidate dot last salary. So in my project, what is the best practice that we follow? We are not creating these files manually, because not many people are handy with XML. You have to be very vigilant while creating an XML file, though it seems very simple, but even a simple mistake can create a havoc. Suppose I will create just while closing, I forgot to mention members. I'll just mention member. Everything is gonna go to it. Everything will go to the trash. You have to debug everything, and it is very minute, so you might not be able to find it very quickly. So for this, what we can create, we can just go to our sandbox. We can create an outbound change set that I have told you in the starting. From there, you can create, or you can directly retrieve the package name. For that, you can give that package name. And if you don't want to do that, you can directly here package.xml, you can create all these files. And there are certain other things that we won't be able to do through change sets that you have to do manually. So retrieve unpackage. What you have to do, you have to just go to the command prompt and hyphen retrieve unpackage. Enter. Right now you will get nothing. Just you have to type this and it will create. But for this, what you have to do, you have to go to the here where you have installed your ant. Just don't a folder above your library. From here, just type cmd. Okay, first folder, sorry. Here you have to type cmd and then perform all the tasks, all the different things that we will define there, and it will create automatically all the things again. So it will retrieve the package. Here the first thing is mkdir. So it will first make this folder retrieve unpackage if the folder is not already there. I have already created one, so it will not create again. It will just, when I will run that command, it will retrieve all the components from my org and save it here. It will take the password, the username, the password, session ID if any, and the URL and the max code. Okay, and it will create a package, and in that package, unmanaged package, it will create your file package.xml automatically, right? If you have not defined. And retrieve package is this comes handy when we use change set. It will take the change set name and retrieve your package. And deploy unpackage, when after retrieving you have to deploy your package to the production, then you have to do this command, run this command, deploy unpackage. And the deploy zip, this command, if suppose you are developing what you are doing, you have developed your customization using Eclipse, and all the customizations are in the form of a zip file. Like if you have used Eclipse IDE, you can export your project in zip format, right? So in that, to deploy that zip file, you can use zip, deploy zip, right? And if any errors comes, roll back an error. It's true. Any error comes, it will roll back. These are the different properties that you can define by your own. See, if you don't like this file, deploy zip or deploy and package, I just want to have deploy, right? I'll just save deploy here, and here in and I'll just write and slash deploy. It will do the work. Right now it will do nothing, but it will do the work. This is the file that you will create by yourself, right? If you are not using the standard file provided by the Salesforce, you can make it your own by making the simple modifications, because ant dot hyphen salesforce dot jar file that we have uploaded, it will fetch all the information, all the libraries already there, and that libraries will fetch these instructions. You can change any name, retrieve package, just make it retrieve, right? Make it retrieve, and if and here also like this mkdir, like you want to make the folder not with retrieve one package, you just want retrieve like a sandbox. Retrieve sandbox, just write retrieve sandbox, and there you have to give retrieve sandbox, nothing else. Okay, and let's back to our slides. Then I already told you all the fields, how to do the ant migration tools, and the most important part which is not covered in change set is deletion, right? For deletion we have there should be something here. Okay, there are other things like deploy code, run local test. What this command will do, I already told that Salesforce uses multi-tenant architecture. So it is the norm that your code coverage of test classes should be at least 75%. So you cannot deploy your code if the test class corresponding to that code covers less than 75%. So for that, you have to run the test classes as well. So you can just click on this deploy code run local test. It will run all the local test classes. Let me remind you, local means all the unmanaged package classes that you have created for your org. Suppose you are also using managed packages, suppose Conga or anything like that. So for that, there is a different command, that is deploy all. For this, for local, this is deploy code local test, and retrieve code is for retrieving the code. This is the undeploy code, right? You have deployed it something and you want to remove that. So here you can do that, undeploy, deploy, and if you want to deploy some specified classes also, these are the classes that you can specify here. Like only suppose I don't want to run all the classes, so I just want to run a few classes. You have to do what? You have to just specify the classes that you want to run. Sample deploy class 1, 2, 3. Okay, and there is one more very handy, and retrieve. Okay. Deploy code check only. I can't see. Okay, here it is. Deploy code check only. This is also one of the important commands. It comes handy when, see, if you are deploying something in production, you have to run the test classes. You have to run all the test classes at that time. And believe me, running the test classes for your org is a very cumbersome task. It takes a huge time. So what we normally do as a best practice, if I have a deployment on Saturday night or Saturday morning, I'll just go to the org. I'll deploy code check only, right? I'll run this command. So it will run all the test classes. It will just code check. It will not deploy anything. It will just check my code, right? So this thing comes handy when you have deployment. So everything I have completed here for and okay, these things I have already told. Deploy unpackage components specified in the target, deploy code, deploys the contents of the code package, undeploy code, deploy code check and verifies the deployment works but doesn't deploy any component, right? It verifies whether your all the classes, you can check whether any of your classes uh, is failing or not. If any of the test class fails, you can work on the test class. Okay. Now comes the last part of this session. That is the most important part. Usually when someone asks me about Copado, I give it as a last section. I choose it as a last section and I always say last but the giant. It is actually the elephant of the house, Copado, because it does everything and you cannot learn Copado in one session, right? So first thing comes into mind when there are so many tools. There is out-of-box functionality from chain set, developer force, and then why Copado comes into the picture. So there are limitations that I have already told. First is time consuming, right? And you have to select all these things one by one. The other thing with chain set, like I told you, the components come in a single list, right? You have to do it every time continuously. And it is a repetitive task, man. Like, and other limitation, which I haven't which I haven't covered yet, was difficulty keeping environments in sync. What do you actually mean by it? Suppose I'm working in DevBox 1, I'm working in one component and the other team in my project is working in DevBox 2. They are working in another component and we both are using one component which is common to both the sub projects. So I have done changes for myself and the other team has done the changes. And when we deploy it in the QA environment, there wouldn't be any sync. It might be possible. I'll first deploy, then he will deploy the same components. He will overwrite all the things, all the coding that I have done so far. So what it will do? It will do nothing. My code will be erased out and his code will be there. And at the end of the day, the entire functionality that we were seeking would not be there. So it's very difficult when we work with chain set or anything like that. And so deployment process become very hectic. So we have to keep sync. And moreover, suppose someone has done some changes in some object and it has been deployed in UAT and we are working and we are not aware what changes has been done. And we are doing something else that should hinder in that thing. So that sync problem also comes into picture. And moreover, the same sync problem, not just with environment, with teams as well, right? I don't know on which object I am working. He don't know on which object I am working. All those things are taken care in Copado. So what actually Copado is? It's the first DevOps tool native to Salesforce. It's completely Salesforce native tool, guys. You just have to use it and you can customize it as well. Since it is a Salesforce native, do whatever you want and everything works same as Salesforce. You don't have to do anything else. And you can easily, the planning of sprints and grooming of stories. You can easily create different stories there, and from there only you can pick those stories. And sprint cycle and your agile methodology is fully followed in Copado. uh, if I'll say in Hindi, मक्खन की तरह चलता है, सबको एक साथ बहुत चलता है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. So what happens, everything works so fine. And since I already told it's a native platform, you can do anything by yourself. Suppose in the layouts, you can change the layout. Suppose there are different layouts, one for your admin, one for developer. You can give the rights to developer. And for that, you can do one thing before closing the session. What is our success.copado.com? You can go here. You can create you can sign up here and go to help and training academy, and here you can find all the trails for Copado, like basic for admin. So it is asking me to log in. So here you can log in and go for trails for admin, because for Copado you have to have some prerequisites. Without those prerequisites, you cannot do anything. So that's all from my end. Thank you guys, and I'm up for any questions if you are still listening.
Yeah, I have some question.
Yeah.
Actually, these are a bit out of course, but but related to deployment only. What I've heard is from Salesforce, they are saying preference should be given to Salesforce DX for deployments. What advantages that Salesforce DX is having? I have heard, but I haven't used much. From Trailhead, I have a bit knowledge. Second thing, why we should go for Copado instead of DX? Because as per my knowledge, I'm not sure. Copado is bit uh, costly
Yeah,
also, but
costly, of course.
Salesforce DX is absolutely free.
Yes.
And as per advantages which we have discussed, we should use Copado because of continuous integration,
Yes, CI/CD.
real time alignment. All these are there in DX also. Means
Yeah.
so these are two questions related to deployment, but we that's what. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, why we should go for Copado? I will not suggest to go for Copado if you are your team size is small. Since see, Copado is very helpful if you are working in large teams and you have different orgs. So you have to keep a sync between. What Copado offers us, if I'll send from a lower level to higher level, then I resync again from a higher level to lower level again, right? So in that case, Copado helps if you have a bigger team size, you are working in a very big project. Otherwise, for small projects, you can go for change sets and trail and whatever you are saying, Trailhead DX as well.
No. So I think DX can also handle a large project, bigger teams, and all things. So
Okay.
if I have to suggest Copado to my company, uh, what benefits I should tell them? So they will say, why not using DX, because that is free of cost. Means we had a bit. I was suggesting that Copado is the new market, but
See, like in Salesforce as well, in the org, Salesforce org, we have, couple of master records. Like if you say like default contact, default user, default account. Okay.